Hello and welcome to this video where we'll delve into the available starter army boxes for Warhammer Age of Sigmar. We're going to be rating each box based on its monetary value, its points value, and its utility to getting an army on the tabletop. So if you're new to Warhammer Age of Sigmar in 2024, or you're an experienced veteran looking to bolster your forces, you're in the right place. I'm Dave, this is Mazz Hobbies. Join me as we explore each army and its available options. At the moment, there are 3 different choices of starter army boxes. Depending on availability, there are Start Collecting boxes, which are the oldest style of Warhammer Age of Sigmar army boxes. These can be incredibly fantastic value at around £57.50 or $95, but their availability is very limited. The next option are the Vanguard boxes. These are the current supported Warhammer Age of Sigmar army boxes. They're your main army box option at the moment, and they cost around £85 or $140. The last option would be the Christmas boxes. Each year, Warhammer create a number of Christmas Army Force boxes. There were 4 for Age of Sigmar this year. You can still get them at some independent gaming stores, but their availability is quite limited, and they come in at about £130 or $230. Before we dive in and look at the army boxes, let's go over a set of rules and provide an overview of our scoring system. So to start off with the rules, all of the prices that we report on this video are based on Games Workshop's recommended retail price. You can often find them a lot cheaper through the independent gaming stores. However, we needed a standard value to base everything off, but if you are buying an army, make sure you shop around. We'll be focusing on boxes only available to purchase in 2024, including those that are out of stock but are expected to be restocked. Where certain characters are exclusive to a box, we've signed these a standard price of £20 for a foot hero or £35 for a mounted hero. In some cases, units consist of fractional numbers compared to the equivalent box. For these instances, costs have been distributed according to the number of models. While not entirely realistic, this method offers a really good indication of value. All of the points that we use have been derived from the February 2024 Battle Scroll update, so are entirely up to date with the current cost for units at the moment. And when units can be assembled in more than one configuration, we've opted for either the most expensive configuration from a points cost basis or the most used configuration. For each box, we'll provide a summary of the box contents, and then we will look at the monetary value of the box, the points value of the box, and the utility of the units within the box. Each of these is scored out of 5, and then the box is given an overall score out of 15. All of the numbers that we've used for these calculations, and in fact all of the details that we've used behind this, can be found as a spreadsheet on our website. You can find the link for that spreadsheet in the channel information, and on there we have prices for each box in pounds and in US dollars. If you like the work that we're doing with this channel, please remember to like and subscribe. So for Daughters of Khaine, we have 2 options. We're going to start with the Vanguard box. This box comes in at around 530 points. In this box, you get a Melusai, Ironscale, Witch Elves, Bloodstalkers, and Doomfire Warlocks. This Vanguard box comes in at a 32% saving over recommended retail price, which is a decent amount of saving. Points-wise, it's in the lower end of average at 6.2 points per pound. Utility-wise, you get some battle line, some of the best ranged units in the game, and a good character, providing an excellent base to build on. In conclusion, the Daughters of Khaine Vanguard has been given a score of 8. It mainly lost points on monetary and points value. Your other option for Daughters of Khaine would be to get one of the Christmas boxes, which are known as the Khainite Slaughter Coven. This comes in at 770 points and includes a Slaughter Queen on Cauldron of Blood, some Blood Sisters, some Heart Renders, some Doomfire Warlocks, and some Witch Elves. This box has a recommended retail price saving of 31.5% and a points per pound value of 5.9, which is in the lowest end of average. Overall, the box scores 9, which reflects its average money value and very low points value. But don't let this put you off. If you are looking at this army, these two boxes are still very good value compared to buying the units individually. Moving on to Fyreslayers, the only option here is the Vanguard box that comes in at 610 points. In this box you get a Battlesmith, some Hearthguard Berserkers, and some Volkite Berserkers. Box rating wise, it comes out at about 35% of recommended retail price, which is fairly average in a monetary savings value. But you do get 7.1 points per pound, which is in the higher end of average for these boxes, so quite good points value. Utility-wise, you get some good units in there. We've scored this box with a 10, reflecting the average money and high average points value. Moving on to Idoneth Deepkin, only one option here again, and that's the Vanguard box that comes in at 560 points. In this box, you get the Isharan Soul Scryer, some Acalian Alapex, some more Sargard, and some Namati Thralls. In total, this box has a 30% saving on recommended retail price, which is around the lower end of average for these boxes. At 6.5 points per pound, their average value for getting an army together. Utility-wise, you'll use all these units bar the character more than once, so a good basis to start from. We've given this box a score of 8 to reflect its low money and points value. Moving on to Kharadron Overlords, and again, only one box choice for this army, and it's the Vanguard box that comes in at a whopping 680 points. In this box, you get an Arcanaut Admiral, an Arcanaut Frigate, some Endrin Riggers or Skywardens, and an Arcanaut Company. In total, this box has a whopping 40% saving on recommended retail price, which is one of the best savings you'll find. At 8 points per model, they're also one of the highest value boxes for getting an army together. Utility-wise, you will use all the units bar the character more than once, so it's a really good basis to start from. This box gets a score of 14 and is an incredibly good value box to start an army. Moving on to Lumineth Realm Lords, again only one option for Lumineth, although you could look at picking up an old box of Arcane Cataclysm models, so this is one of the older Age of Sigmar army boxes. If you can't do that, the Vanguard comes in at around 540 points. In this box, you get a Cenari Cathala, the Nari Blade Lords, some Wardens, some Sentinels. In total, this box comes in at a 36% saving on recommended retail price, which is fairly average. At 6.3 points per pound, they're average on that saving. Utility-wise, you will use all the units bar the character more than once, so it's a good basis to start from. We've given this box a score of 10, which reflects its very low points value. Next up is Seraphon. Seraphon is always a really difficult army to advise on because it has two very different lists and play styles, either space lizards or jungle dinos. The Vanguard box is very much towards the jungle dinos, where your other option would be the Christmas box, which is very much towards the space lizards. All in all, the Vanguard box comes in at around 580 points, which is not the best, but is reasonable points value. In the box, we have in a Saurus Old Blood on Carnosaur, which you could choose to build as a Skink Oracle on Troglodon, some Kroxigors, and some Saurus Warriors. In total, this box has a 34% saving on recommended retail price, which is fairly average, and 6.8 points per pound, which is quite low. Utility-wise, you will use all these units bar the character more than once, so it's a good basis to start from. This box gets a score of 9, which is low. That reflects very average money value and also a low points value. The other option for Seraphon is the Christmas box, known as the Primordial Star Host. This comes in at 1,040 points. In this box, you get a Slann Starmaster, some Agridon Lancers, some Kroxigors, some Terror Wings, some Saurus Warriors, and interestingly, the Warcry Warband, the Hunters of Huanchi. In total, this box has a 33% saving on recommended retail price, which is fairly average. At 7.7 points per pound, they're pretty good for points value, and utility-wise, you'll use all these units, so it's a good basis to start from. We've given this box a rating of 11, and that really reflects its much better points value than the Vanguard box. Moving on to Stormcast Eternals, the obvious choice if you're looking to start a Stormcast Eternals army is to pick up a Dominion box set, which was the AOS 3 army box set. In that, you get a significant number of models, some really good characters, and it has incredible points value. You can still find Dominion box sets kicking about in some independent stores, or you can look to buy the Stormcast Eternals half of the Dominion box set off eBay. These are still available and are probably your best option if you want to get a Stormcast Eternals army together. But failing that, this Start Collecting box is still available, and it comes in at 710 points, which is pretty good value. In this box, you get a Lord Celestant on Dracuth, a Lord Relictor, some Retributors, some Liberators, some Prosecutors. Overall, this box comes in at an eye-watering 61% of recommended retail price, which is an incredibly huge saving. And at 12.3 points per pound, it's one of the highest value boxes out there. We've given this box a rating of 13, and that really reflects the frustrating incomplete units that you will then need to source the models to complete those units to make them compliant with the current battle scroll. But overall, incredibly good value. For Sylvaneth, we only have one option, and that's the Vanguard box that comes in at a pretty good value of 680 points. In this box, we have the the Branch Witch, a Tree Lord, Kurnoth Hunters, and Tree Revenants. Overall, this box comes out at 33% of recommended retail price, which is pretty average, and it works out at 8.5 points per pound, which is very high. And that's really good value when it comes to getting an army on the table. We've given this box a score of 12. It's mainly let down by its monetary value, but is still an incredibly good value box to start an army. Moving on now to Nighthaunt. The only option here is the Vanguard box that comes in at 590 points, unless you can pick up one of the Soul Wars boxes that had a Nighthaunt half to it, but those are quite limited these days. In the box you get a Knight of Shrouds, some Grimghast Reapers, some Chain Rasps, and some Spirit Hosts. The box nets you a saving of 34% recommended retail price, which is fairly average, and at 6.9 points per pound, it's quite low value in getting an army with points on the table. We've given this box a score of 9 that really reflects the low points and average money value. Moving on to Ossiarch Bonereapers. In this we have two options. We'll start with the Vanguard box that comes out at a very respectable 720 points. In this box you get a Mortazan Soul Reaper, Gothizzar Harvester, some Death Riders, and some Mortek Guard. This box comes in at a 36% of recommended retail price saving, which is good, and it comes in at 8.4 points per pound. So it's really going to help you get those points on the table quite cheaply. Overall, we've given this box a score of 14 and feel that it's an incredibly good value box for getting an army together. Your other option for Ossiarch Bonereapers would be the Christmas box known as the Praetorian Spearhead. This comes in at a very respectable 1,180 points. In this box you get a Arch Cavalos, which can also be built as a Liege Cavalos, Gothizzar Harvester, some Morghast, some Cavalos Death Riders, and some Mortek Guard. This box works out at a really good 41% of recommended retail price saving and comes out at 9.3 points per pound. This box is incredibly good value. We've given this box a score of 15 and it works out as the clear winner of the Christmas boxes. Moving on to Soulblight Gravelords, the Vanguard box comes in at 710 points, which is very respectable. In this box you get a Vampire Lord, some Vargheists, some Blood Knights, and some Death Rattle Skeletons. This box comes in at a 37% of recommended retail price saving and works out at 8.3 points per pound. So it's really good value, and that's reflected in its score of 14. Your other option for Soulblight Gravelords would be to get the Christmas box known as the Vengorian Court. This comes in at a not so great 980 points, and in this box you get a Vengorian Lord, which can also be built as the named character Lucavi, some Feldbats, Blood Knights, Direwolves, and Death Rattle Skeletons. This box works out at a 30% recommended retail price saving and 9.3 points per pound. So it's good value in terms of getting an army on the table, and it will build you quite a strong army, but in terms of savings on a money value, it's not so great, and that's reflected in its lowish score of 10. Moving on to Beasts of Chaos, the only option here is the Vanguard box that comes in at a very respectable 760 points. In this box you get a Great Bray Shaman, some Dragon Ogres, some Gors, some Bestigors, and some Ungors. This box comes in at a 32% of recommended retail price saving and works out at about 8 points per pound. The value of the box is very good in terms of points per pound. You'll get an army on the table quite cheaply, which is why it's scored a 13. If you're thinking of Beasts of Chaos, I would caution you. There have been a number of rumours about this army in the long term, and I would really be tempted to hold out for AOS 4 and see what happens with this army. For Khorne, there are two very interesting choices. The first choice would be the Vanguard box that comes in at 590 points. In this box, you get a Slaughter Priest, some Mighty Skull Crushers, Blood Warriors, and Blood Reavers. This box comes in at a 35% recommended retail price saving and works out at about 6.9 points per pound. So it's an okay saving, which is reflected in its score of 11. Your other option for Khorne would be the Start Collecting box. This comes in at a much higher 740 points. In this box, you get a Mighty Lord of Khorne, Blood Secretal, Blood Stoker, Korgoroth, Blood Warriors, and Blood Reavers. It's a massive saving at 62% of recommended retail price at 12.8 points per pound, which makes this a very good value box, which is reflected in its score of 15. For Tzeench, the only option is the Vanguard box that comes in at a very respectable 730 points. In this box, you get a Magister on disc, some Screamers, some Flamers, some Zangors, and some Acolytes. At 35% of recommended retail price and 8.5 points per pound, this is a good box with some decent savings reflected in its score of 13. For Slaanesh, your only option is the Vanguard box that comes in at 640 points. In this box, you get a Shard Speaker, some Slangor, some Bliss Barb Seekers, and some Bliss Barb Archers. At 36% of recommended retail price and 7.6 points per pound, it's great value, and because of this, it scores a 12. Moving on to Nurgle, and with the Vanguard box, you get 690 points, which is quite respectable. In this box, you get a Spoilpox Scrivener, some Plague Bearers, some Putrid Blight Kings, and some Blight Lords that could also be built as Lord of Afflictions. At 35% of recommended retail price and with 8.1 points per pound, this is a really good value box and scores a 13. Moving on to Skaven, and the Vanguard box comes in at 650 points. In this box, you get a Grey Seer, Warp Lightning Cannon, some Storm Fiends, and some Clan Rats. This works out at a 27% recommended retail price saving and about 7.6 points per pound, which is a low monetary saving and a fairly average point saving, which is reflected in its score of 10. What I would say at this point is that AOS 4 is rumoured to be round the corner, and it's rumoured that that box will contain Skaven as one of the armies. So if you're thinking of a Skaven army, I'd maybe hold off until then and get yourself a really good bargain. There are two options for Slaves to Darkness. The Vanguard box, which comes in at a very measly 590 points. In this box, you get the Chaos Lord, Chaos Chariot, some Chaos Warriors, and some Chaos Knights. This works out at a 32% of recommended retail price saving and about 6.9 points per pound, So it comes out with a fairly average monetary and points value, which is reflected in its score of 10. Your other option for Slaves to Darkness would be the Christmas box known as the Warhorde of Eternus. This box comes out at 960 points, and in this box you get Eternus, which can also be built as a non-named character, some Ogroid Theridans, some Chaos Knights, some Chaos Chosen, and some Chaos Warriors. Overall, this comes in at a 30% of recommended retail price saving and works out at about 7.1 points per pound, which is good value and reflected in its score of 11. For Gitz, the only option is the Vanguard box that comes in at a respectable 690 points. In this box, you get the Loom Boss, some Rockgut Troggoths, some Squid Hoppers that can also be built as Boingrot Bounders, and some Moon Clan that can be built as either Stabbers or Shooters. Overall, this box has a 29% of recommended retail price saving and works out at about 6.7 points per pound, which is a fairly average value box, and that's reflected in its score of 11. So last and by no means least, we have Ogres. For Ogres, our only option is the Vanguard box, and this comes in at a crazy 1010 points. In this box, you get a Tyrant, an Iron Blaster, some Mournfang Riders, some Lead Belchers, some Gluttons, and some Noblars. At a 45% of recommended retail price saving and an amazing 11.8 points per pound, this box is incredible value. I absolutely love this box. I'd buy 2 of them to have 2,000 points, perhaps buy a few more hero models, and have a really nice army quite cheap for around 200 to 250 pounds. A great box and absolutely great value. So with these boxes all scored, we can look at the final rankings. And with the final rankings in place, on 15 points, we have the Ossiarch Bonereapers Christmas box, the Khorne Start Collecting box, and the Ogor Mawtribes Vanguard box. At the bottom end of the rankings, with 8 points, we have the Daughters of Khaine and Idoneth Deepkin boxes, followed very closely by Nighthaunt and Seraphon. Everything else sits pretty much around the middle of the table. Please don't be put off by any of this. You collect and paint whatever army you want to, because that's going to help you get that army painted and on the table really quickly. What you might find is if the army you're looking to collect falls towards the lower end of these rankings, perhaps maybe hold on for a bit. With AOS 4 around the corner, we'll potentially see some new army boxes being released, which may have a much more significant value to you. But please do not feel that you shouldn't collect an army purely because the value isn't the highest that you can get. Overall, the value of these boxes is pretty good, but if I had to pick a winner, the clear winner is the Ogor Mawtribes Vanguard box. At over 1,000 points for a Vanguard box, that box is incredibly good value. The army you can create from that is an incredibly fun army to play. I think for me, that's the absolute winner out of these army starter boxes. So thank you once again for tuning into Mazz Hobbies. I really hope you enjoyed this video. You can go to the website if you want to access the spreadsheet and be able to look in a little bit more depth about these boxes. If you like what we do, please like this video and subscribe to the channel. It really helps us out. feel free to post in the comments if I'm wrong, and also feel free to post in the comments if there's one of these armies that you'd like me to do a deep dive into, and perhaps look at how you could expand that army box into 2,000 points within the current meta, either for the best financial value or for the best points value. I'll be more than happy to do that. The more comments for a specific army, the more likely I am to do that army first. But for now, from me to you, I hope you have a successful hobby journey. Bye for now.